I'm alive, damn it.
Hello and welcome to Lucky, episode number 13 of Unrelenting. I am Darren O'Neill and I am still alive.
That is so cool. This is episode 13 and I'm Darren O'Neill and I'm also still alive.
Is it really that cool?
That's amazing.
It's a week late because the COVID got you.
Well, it's a week late because you didn't want to record an extra episode like somebody was suggesting.
But you got COVID before we were able to record the extra episode.
I think I was suggesting that like a month ago, but okay. Blame it on the COVID. Sure.
We want to be right on time. We want to be up to date.
Mm-hmm.
People come to expect us to be right on the cutting edge of everything.
Okay. Well, cutting edges are good.
And how is the COVID? How would you rate it? Would you give it a 10?
I would say, well, there's multiple answers to that question. First of all, my personal COVID, kind of like my personal Jesus, has completely vanished at this point. Not there anymore. But I can certainly provide an account of what it was like having the big COVID-o.
Yes, because everybody that has been listening on the last episode, you knew you were a little bit sick.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemingly within 24 hours of that, it was like, ooh, bad.
I'm going to blame 5G.
A lot of people are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that the way the events actually happened is I ended up getting COVID and didn't realize I had COVID because the test didn't actually tell me I had COVID.
Yes, the tests suck.
And then I assumed, well, I have something. It's probably just a cold. Because that's really all I felt like was like a equivalent to what I've felt like in the past with a cold. And then sometime after feeling like I just had a cold, I started feeling nauseous and I started feeling like I wasn't particularly hungry, but I was extremely tired. And when I looked those three symptoms up, it said, oh, well, that's COVID.
Right.
And I thought, motherfuckers, let me go get another test. So I got another test and this test said, oh, you have COVID. So thankfully, better late than never, I guess. So I think I officially was identified as having the COVIDs and things about not quite a week, but close to a week after I actually got it.
So the two things we've learned then are if you think you've got a cold or something like that, you should probably be treating it as you would if it were COVID right off the bat. As far as,
I mean, potentially, because most people just ignore colds. I know I usually do.
Right. You're like, I'll go on. I'll be fine. I'll drink some extra orange juice and
exactly.
And that's it.
That's about it.
It would be nice then if you start getting a little bit of a cold, you want to hit it with the vitamin D3. You want to hit it with the zinc and all of that. But the other thing,
ivermectin,
if you have it,
monoclonal antibodies, and just I'd say if you feel like you have a cold, just get the full Joe Rogan treatment.
If you can. Well, this was the thing. You couldn't get your monoclonal antibodies because they shut you down, brother.
Fucking A, dude. I am still pissed about that.
Like the day before you were supposed to get it.
Literally the day before. And the way it works is the almighty Joe Blow allows a certain amount of actual effective medicine to be sent to a state per week. And so I went through my doctor. Of course, first I looked up what all the symptoms actually are to make sure you get it. So I did my homework. I had the conversation with the doctor. I amazingly had every single possible symptom that you need in order to qualify for the monoclonal antibodies. And didn't even have to make anything up. I actually had them all. And then I got my notification from the state saying, you will be getting your treatment on Thursday, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, this is great. This is awesome. This is exactly what I was looking for. It's the shortcut from everyone who's had it that I know of. It is the shortcut to getting rid of COVID because literally within 8 hours of going through it, the COVID just goes away by itself.
Yeah, it goes on massive retreat. You feel
Like
better.
massive. Like you literally feel better within 8 hours. And not just a little better, like you feel like you've got rid of it. And like a day later, some asshole buddy of mine sends me this text message saying, "Hey, did you know that the CDC just said,
that stuff
no longer works for COVID or for COVID,
for the Omicron, right?"
Yeah. Which I thought, well, that seems a little suspect.
Well, yeah, well, it's the government. Like, I don't want to spend money on all these idiots with Omicron.
Yeah. So I started doing a little bit of research, and what I found was that it does, in fact, do less for people who have Omicron. And by less, I mean it's only 25% an improvement for people with Omicron versus a 75 to 90% improvement for people with previous versions.
Right, Delta. Which this is the asinine stuff right here. It seems like you had Delta, not Omicron.
I did have Delta. That's exactly it. And so because somebody had made a decision that, well, people are only really getting Omicron these days because if you wanted Delta, you would have already had Delta by now. So clearly the only possible COVID you can have is Omicron. And it's only, this stuff only helps about a quarter of the people with Omicron. Then there's no point in giving it to anybody. Neither the quarter of the people would normally help with Omicron, nor the people that may be just possibly have a different variant of COVID where it helps by 80+%.
But they didn't even try to pivot and send you the Pfizer pill or anything.
Nothing. No, it was everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm still on the schedule, and I kept checking every day. And then at about 8 p.m., the night before I was supposed to come in to get my treatment, I get the dreaded message from the distribution center saying, unfortunately, we do not have sufficient enough quantities of the stuff available. Please consult your doctor for alternative medical procedures. So it wasn't even saying, oh, well, we're out for now, but we'll get some more later. No, this was clearly they had used up the last that was in Texas for all these people that didn't need it, clearly, because they have Omicron. And here I am with my Delta variant.
Well, you brought it in from Florida.
Well, I mean, there's a few circumstances there. I did potentially bring it in from potentially states such as Florida, but also this assumption that the only thing going around is Omicron is only true if you look at the cohort of people who have already had COVID twice previously. So if you had COVID, the original, and then you had COVID, the Delta variant, the only COVID that you can get at that point is COVID, the Omicron.
Of course.
But what about those of us that managed to not get the original variant of COVID? Well, we could potentially still get it. Not to mention still getting Omicron, and not to mention still getting Delta.
This is why you want to be an early adopter.
You clearly do. The lesson learned through all this process is get COVID, get it often, and get it early.
Because the interesting thing, you were like the
only
Petri
way
dish
to
here.
ensure. Well, I'd like to think I was a Petri dish that managed not to have anything put on it for about 2 years.
Right.
But then, yeah.
You were doing the stuff. You were doing the vitamin D. You were doing the zinc. You were doing the quercetin. You were doing maybe even more. Yeah. There's like, what's it, MCT? There's some other now stuff that my wife was talking about. PCP. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do.
Yeah. Dimethyl chlorotride. I mean, I was like, hey, if I can get my hands on it, I'm going to do it. That was my basic general rule of thumb.
Was the overall level of sickness more, less about what you would have expected getting this?
Well, again, with a sample of one, it's really hard to give an accurate medical answer to that question.
Well, yeah, we're not, well, God forbid. One, we're not giving medical advice. Do not take medical advice from your favorite podcasters.
Well, maybe take it from them. Just don't take it from us.
Right. Or if they happen to actually have a medical degree, give them a little more.
Although lately, medical degree just means that you're probably telling falsehoods of all kinds.
It all depends on which
according to
platform.
According to the platforms, that's usually the case. So I would say that, given my experience with COVID Delta, it was pretty much on par with what I'd seen other people or read about other people getting with Delta. Everybody who I spoke with that had Omicron were completely shocked and befuddled by my version of COVID.
They're like, what do you mean? Like, you're
really?
sick?
Yeah, because the typical, and this goes for both people that are vaxxed and people that are unvaxxed, because the vaccinations really made no difference. But for most people, when they got Omicron, what they got was a sore throat and a little bit of a cough on day one. And then they were a little bit tired day two, but their cough went away. And by day three, they felt like they were pretty much back to normal. And if there was anything at all weird about it or different, is that their taste buds and their smell were diminished. That's it. That's probably about 15 to 20 people that I spoke with who had gotten Omicron in their experience.
Yeah, so 72 hours for them, you're kind of on the way back to normal. That's where I was getting a little concerned. A week or 10 days into this, when I'm like, how you doing? You're like, same. It's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you kept waking me up like every hour for some reason and asking me, how was I doing?
It was a test.
Like, my God, dude, we don't talk this much even when we record a show. Why are you asking me? Just leave me the fuck alone.
Well, I had all the people sending in applications to fill your spot, and I was just like, well.
Trying to figure out, well, should I wait another couple days or should I?
Right, what is the proper?
Can I do?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, when do you date after a divorce or?
Yeah, I mean, it's only been 12 episodes, so how does that play into it?
Right.
And I mean, there could be a lot of potential people that could do unrelenting after all. So how long do I wait? No,
So
I get it.
questions.
I get it. Yeah, lots of questions.
No, we were concerned about your health, and your voice is sounding a lot better when I, heard Adam Curry talk about you on No Agenda, saying that your voice had gone up an octave, and then I talked to you. It's like it really took me right back to talking to my dad after he almost died when he was in the hospital, for a few months. Yeah. And that's how his voice was for a while. It's like, it's like this stuff really can kick your ass. So
yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing is if we got Delta like every year, people just get used to it.
Right.
It doesn't actually kill you that much. I don't know if you saw the latest stats have now come out for the mortality rates of COVID with no morbidity cofactors. So essentially, how dangerous is it if you don't factor in things like being fat or having diabetes or anything else? If it's just like as some random, disease that pops up, how bad is it actually?
I don't know. I mean, you have to kind of separate it a little bit because as you're seeing, Delta was way worse. From what I've read on the Omicron, it's at the Omicron stage and beyond, it is already less than the seasonal flu, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's way less than the Delta version was less than the flu. The Delta version had something like, once you take out all the cofactors, it had a morbidity of something around 800 people per 10 million. I mean, it was ridiculously low.
Right, which is why it is ridiculous that the conversation from the federal government was never going down the path of you're fat, you're unhealthy, you're eating the wrong foods, you're not getting enough exercise. That would be something people can actually change. And you could have a completely different body within 6 months to a year for most people if you really decide to drop all of the negative stuff.
All the comorbidity shit.
A lot. Yeah.
Or like quit smoking.
Well, that also, although you're seeing the data, and I know it's interesting because people love to believe what they want to believe. And so you see the data coming out like, well, marijuana or the oil, the CBD oil is effective in keeping COVID away. And you look at the numbers on it and it was like, well, people who had otherwise a 10% chance of getting it, maybe this was down to 5%. It was a change, but it wasn't huge. But it's like, oh, wow, then this is good for you. It's like, well, not necessarily.
Well, and I will say, since we're talking about specifics of the COVID, that doing a mega dose of vitamin D, doing quercetin, doing all the other crapola that I was doing for literally a year and a half before I ever got it as a preventative measure, I think did two things that were, to some extent, that kind of screwed up my diagnosis. I never had a sore throat, ever, the whole time. I just skipped over the sore throat.
Now, was the sore throat that prevalent with Delta? I know it is with Omicron.
Yeah. Pretty much everybody had it. Same thing with a cough. Like, I only got my cough for COVID a week and then a few days after getting it, where most people get the cough on the day 2 or 3. And again, I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I was just like, self-dosing the whole time previous to that. So I skipped over the coughing. I skipped over the sore throat. I skipped over the sneezing. And I think that partly is why I thought, well, this must just be a regular cold, not even a flu, because I'm not really coughing. I'm not really sneezing. I don't have a sore throat at all. And it wasn't until the symptoms like lack of appetite and the very strong desire to sleep.
Right. Deathly tired, it seemed.
Deathly tired, yeah. And the tiredness makes total sense, because where that comes from is a lack of oxygen. Because while I didn't have the traditional sort of COVID symptoms, nonetheless, my body was dealing with this virus, the COVID. And so what happens is a lot of the white blood cells combined with the shed proteins from the virus end up just getting dumped into your lungs, for lack of a better place. And so your lungs, which, let's say your typical lung capacity that you use is only somewhere between 30 and 50% of the total volume capacity of your lungs. Just because when you're walking around or you're sitting in front of a computer, you're not using your lungs a whole lot. So it doesn't take much for you to just stay alive and stay awake, just even if you're barely breathing.
Right.
But with the COVID, what ends up happening is it dumps all that crap. And for some people, and certainly in some variants, there's a lot more liquid there. With the Delta that I had, there was not a whole lot of liquid in there at all. And so it was really mostly just white blood cells and shed proteins from the virus, but they're literally taking up space inside the little tubules, the little nodules that normally would be opening up and closing as you're breathing. And slowly, one by one, they're just shutting them down because they're filling them full of garbage. And next thing you realize is that, like, your deepest, fullest breathing is basically shallow breathing. Like, that's as good as it gets. You can't breathe any deeper or faster than shallow breathing. And when you realize that happens, your next realization is, oh shit, I can't even hit 100% O2 levels if I'm just shallow breathing anymore.
Right.
And so I got and I've had this for a long time. I would kind of like the self-monitoring gadgets, but I got one of those VSO2 meters that you put on your finger, shows you the current oxygen content of your blood along with your rate, your heart rate.
Right.
And what I started seeing on there is that doing nothing, just sitting in front of a computer or something, being very passive, my blood oxygen rate would be sitting between 90 and 93.
Which is a little low still, but not horrible.
But it should be closer to like 96 to 100.
Right.
That's doing nothing because you're hardly using your lungs, so that you should be mostly at full capacity. But if I don't know, go upstairs or grab a drink or something, if I do anything that is just mildly, and I really do mean mildly, using oxygen, then my heart rate goes to 130 and my VSO2 goes down to like 80.
Damn.
So, yeah, right? That's not good.
No, that's not good at all.
And then I got to take like 3-4 minutes to get my heart rate back down and not feel like I'm going to be running out of oxygen. And the advice from the doctor is like, well, if it's below 90, you should just go to the emergency room.
Right. Yeah, they're going to panic at that point, which is why those little
and I'm
devices
like, no,
are.
I know exactly what happens when it gets down to under 90. And that's they drill a hole through your trachea and they put you on a pump. And that's worse than anything you could possibly get. Remember, not medical advice, just by having a low O2 rate. So I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't going to happen.
Right. We have to be smart enough to be aware of what it is and know how to manage it.
Yeah. The only thing that going to the hospital does is it subtracts $10,000 a night from you. And it makes it really, really difficult to sleep because the beds are uncomfortable. And you've got a stem in your arm to where they're going to suck in, or either suck out blood for tests or put something into you. And they usually do this just as you're starting to fall asleep, just to make sure you never actually sleep.
Yes. You need
Hospitals are the worst, period. End of story.
Yeah. You can't get good. Yeah. You cannot sleep in a hospital.
It's impossible. It is literally torture. You want to see what torture actually feels like? Go to a hospital. There you go. Now you know what torture is.
Well, yeah. I mean, the last time I was in was after getting the snipping of the gallbladder out.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went into the AFib. So I spent a night when they were getting that back in, and just being on the automatic blood pressure cuff, which was like once an hour or something. It's like, you
just
can't
enough
sleep
to wake you up all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I just saw the cardiologist the other day, and I asked him because I was curious. I'm like, are you seeing a lot of, or what is the situation with myocarditis in COVID-19? I didn't ask him about the vaccine.
Did he look around nervously when you asked him that?
No, he's a good guy.
Okay.
He's a good guy, and he's honest. And he's like, it's been talked about with the vaccine. He's like, and it has been attached to a certain amount of cases of the vaccine. And he said it's also attached to COVID at a higher rate. He's like, but with that said, both of those, the rate is so low that it's another one of these really outlier things. It's not common. We're hearing about it because you hear everything now, but it's not.
Yeah, you certainly do. And I will say that when you're running low on oxygen and you're trying to breathe hard and you start feeling your heart going pa-pum, 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 you do kind of get that thought in your head. I was like, oh shit, the last thing I want to do is fuck up my heart.
Right.
Because that would not be good. And so with having the occasional oxygen level dropping, I did what every normal person would do. I went shopping.
I don't know if that's what every normal person does.
Every intelligent person would do anyway. So I bought an automatic cuff to measure my own blood pressure without being in the hospital on a regular basis. I can sleep much better in my own bed, even with the gadgets. I bought an oxygen concentrator system that could raise the oxygen coming into my nose to 99%.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I bought it's certainly, I would not call it a really, well, it is technically a positive air pump. So it is pushing air through my nose into my lungs, whether I want to breathe or not. So I picked up a few things just for medical reasons, and to avoid having to go to the hospital. Because all of this, by the way, buying all this shit coming on Amazon from China is cheaper than one night stay in a hospital.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And if you don't have to be in the hospital, you do not want to be in the hospital.
Why bother, right? I already had an EKG machine from previous things. So it's
You're
really,
set.
I mean,
if I get COVID, I'm coming to your house, Gene.
I can mostly self-monitor and the alarms will ding off on their own and let me know what's what. I find that to be much, much easier on my brain, on my pleasure centers, than having to be at a hospital counting how much money they're stealing from me, combined with the absolutely horrible experience of trying to fall asleep.
Well, because you know what they can do for the treatment on this and it's not much.
Yeah, it's nothing. It is literally the same shit that I can do in my own house.
Right now that you couldn't get the monoclonal antibodies.
Right, but that's not a hospital treatment either. They can't get them either.
Nice. Yeah.
That's the crazy part. And so the rant about monoclonal antibodies is that there are 2 states in the union that use the most of these things because they've encouraged their citizens to actually take advantage of them. Can you guess those 2 states?
Florida has to be one.
Yep.
And the next one, I'm guessing, would be Texas.
Yep. The 2 states that
you were in,
that I was in, that use these the most because they know the benefits. Now, if you're sitting there trying to inflate COVID numbers as the federal government, the last thing you need is to be spending any money and allowing government programs to be funding the states that are making you look bad. And so I will go out on a limb and say that absolutely 100% the reason that I was not able to get monoclonal antibodies had to do with the fact that I was in Texas and or Florida, because the people who I still know on the liberal coast had no problems whatsoever getting those. They've got like an extra month supply that nobody's cutting off California right now. So if you're in California, you just run right down, show your triple vaccine card.
You'll feel good.
Get all the monoclonal antibodies you want. Not if you're in Texas, not if you're in Florida, not if you're in states where people actually don't like to use the government jab, but would prefer to actually treat a disease. It's a novel concept. It's something we used to do back in the old days, is actually try and treat disease,
right,
rather than to magically prevent diseases by throwing darts at a board and usually missing.
Sounds like the federal government may be trying to kill you, Gene.
Oh, I know they're trying to kill me. They already have unsuccessfully done that in the past.
I mean, the
amount of money. This is just one more example.
The amount of money they've spent on these COVID tests, which they're giving away a bunch of them. I mean, I ordered mine. I haven't gotten them yet, but we know they're useless.
Oh, they're totally useless.
You saw that, and I'm like, well, you said I took all the tests. I'm like, that don't mean nothing. Swab your throat, because that's the only thing that's working right now. And
well, but I'm not even sure that would have worked, because I had no sore throat whatsoever because of all the preventative shit I was doing.
True. And that is an interesting thing, because there is a study that just came out of Israel on the vitamin D stuff.
Yep.
And they say that they are pretty much able to determine what somebody's vacation through COVID will be like, depending on their age and their vitamin D levels. And those 2 things alone, they're able to figure out what the person's outcome will be, which is really interesting. I mean, it's nice that they finally figured that out. And
well, yeah, but aren't they on their 4th or 5th COVID injection in Israel?
They may be, but I don't know if that had much to do with the vitamin D. I would have to see who they were using as the guinea pigs in these things. But it is an interesting thing that you say
that Palestinians
doing all of this stuff as a precursor, as your prophylactics, to keep this away. It sounds like that is absolutely the right thing to do. But since you contracted it, you needed the medication, which then they told you couldn't have. I think if you would have got the antibodies within a couple of days, you'd have been good to go and wouldn't have
would have been probably good to go within 1 day, because like I said, my instance, on the one hand, I didn't have the barely there pathetic version of COVID known as Omicron.
You're like, those people can't even say they had COVID.
I know, right? I had Delta, but even with Delta, I think that the biggest issue was a failure to identify properly when I first got it. That probably delayed the final resolution of it a little longer. But because I would have started treating it sooner in more proactive ways, like jumping on pure oxygen, for example.
Right.
Rather than just assuming, oh, well, I don't have it, I just have a cold. So that probably cost me a little bit of time.
Well, and it shows just how useless all of these measures have been, which is something that just came out of Johns Hopkins, which is interesting. But they basically said all of these mitigating factors with the lockdowns basically did nothing. And the reason for that is all of this, if you're sick, stay home. It's like there's people that are carrying this around for days without knowing it. Well, even if you're getting tested.
Yeah. And the other part that's come out a lot more strongly recently is that it's always been the vaccinated people that have managed to spread COVID. Because people that are not vaccinated, they tend to act less callous. They don't run out there and engage in activities that would spread it. They tend to stay at home more, stuff like that.
Although some do, because there's some people who haven't been vaccinated who are like, this isn't even real. Viruses aren't real. It's like, okay.
Well, the viruses may not be real, but, at least the planet is flat. I guess you know that much.
Right. And that again was something that I know a lot of people won't want to hear, but the guy that I go to, the cardiologist, works out of our hospital here in the suburbs. And he said a few weeks ago, they had about 150 people in with COVID. And I think the hospital's like a 300 bed hospital. So, I mean, it's not super big, but it's not really super small. He said that was down to in the 40s, but throughout all of this, a vast majority of the people in were unvaccinated, which I know people don't want to hear that if they're and again, I'm fully anti-mandate, but the data is the data. So you take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think most people that are vaccinated, maybe not most, but a good chunk of people that are vaccinated would also agree and say that it's not about whether or not you should get vaccinated, because they did, and they probably think you should as well. But it's really about whether the government has a right to force anybody to do it.
Correct. Which is why clumping all those people up, and I talked about that with my buddy Larry on Planet Rage this week. Clumping those people together is just another way.
Oh, you mean the Subsonic show?
To divide everything. Planet Rage, baby.
Yeah, it's below the minimum audible frequencies. So
I know Larry's got the low voice. Yeah.
Listen. Yeah.
We need a filter that can bring the
If
level.
If I put a high pass filter on you guys, there's zero signal.
It's nice. It's a nice clear signal that way. What if you listen at 2 times the speed? Then we sound like people with normal voices.
So I would have to, I wonder, I would have to listen at twice the speed, but without the filter to adjust the frequencies back to their normal positions.
Right. You want it to
I'd have chipmunk. To listen in the chipmunk mode, and then I'd probably hear both of you guys. Yeah.
That would be good.
That would be good. Maybe you should start saying that in the beginning of your episodes.
Right. If you can't hear the voices because the frequencies are too low.
Or do you need somebody like me to say that PSA for you at the beginning of each episode? Now, if you've downloaded this episode, but you can't hear any actual sound other than a buzzing of the electrical grid.
Yes, it's possible.
Here's what you can do.
That the manly men you're listening to, their voices are too low.
Yes.
You need a special filter for that one. But this is just another way people are being divided. And that's not the way it should be in America. You should have the freedom to decide to do what you want to do. I didn't mock you. I wasn't like, Gene, you got sick, you moron. It's like, dude, get see a doctor.
No, you just kept me awake the whole damn time.
I texted you like once a day. Of course, it was like when I would get up at like 7 a.m. So I'd be like, Gene, are you still alive?
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I appreciate that. It wasn't like, hey, how are you feeling? What's the difference? Like, are you still alive?
Well, this is the important
That was
question.
the daily message I had to look forward to. Are you still alive?
Well, see, because otherwise I would want details and, how are you doing? You would have to give more than one word, kind of, but, I guess.
Yeah, well, usually I would just say yes.
Yes.
That would be enough.
Still alive. Yes.
Still alive. Still going to go back to sleep for the next, 4 hours. Thank you.
Well, you had to get up every now and then. Come on.
I did. I actually didn't miss a day of work the whole time I had COVID.
See, that's impressive. Was the quality of your work there?
Let's not go there.
What do you think?
I just said I didn't miss a single day. That's the important part.
That's still impressive.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff has gone on, though.
And neither should anyone else when they get COVID.
Well, again, you have to be smart enough to understand what it is, to understand when your body is in trouble. And if it is, then get medical attention. I mean, there's a lot of people
on Amazon.
Well, if you can get the devices, monitor the stuff, and then you don't take it lightly if it's like, my heart rate's 150 and my oxygen stats are 60.
The funny thing right now is that if you ever watched a movie where there was an old, rich, sick guy who was confined to his bed.
That's you?
Just waiting to die. Like, for example, in, what movie had that recently?
Rich old white guy waiting to die.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to be white, but they're usually old and rich, which kind of means they're usually white. Like that Hannibal Lecter movie had that. There's been a bunch of movies with that. But the reason I bring it up is because it is funny because it feels like I'm slowly working on my at-home hospital setup here to where I'll be able to shoot that scene verbatim from any of these types of movies and then just have a variety of things making noise and moving around and going.
Now, is this in your regular bedroom, or do you actually have built a hospital room? See, that would be serious.
I know, right? No, I should build a hospital room. No, it's in my regular bedroom, but it's progressively taking up a bigger portion of the bedroom.
But it's important to know the state of your health, and a lot of people don't. They don't know how to check simple things. And,
it's like temperature, for example.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't trust half the crap you can buy on Amazon for that. The ear things and all that. No, you still got to stick a thing in your mouth.
Yeah, the best way to measure temperature is actually intraearly.
Intraearly?
Intraearly.
That's
a technical term.
I didn't know that. I've never found any of those that work.
That infrared thermometer.
They point in, but then they have to do a little mathematics to try to, because it's not really the full amount, but they can tell if it's this in the ear.
No, it's a higher amount. I mean, that's the thing is the warmest thing in your body is your brain.
And speak for yourself. Mine barely works. It's just sitting there humming along.
Well, it's sad for your other organs, I guess. But if you look at the biggest heat generator, it's your brain. It is not underneath your armpit.
No.
And the only reason you stick something in your mouth is because back in the old days, they used to stick something in your butt. And the
mouth was way better than that.
They got enough complaints about it that it's okay. I guess technically it could be the mouth too, not just the butt. So we'll go for that. But really doing non-contact, so infrared based measurements, you could either measure up your nose or you can measure the back of your throat. Although that does get cooled off more frequently. Or you can measure inside of your ear, which almost never gets cooled off. So that actually gives you a very accurate measurement. The tricky bit to measuring the temperature through your ear is, and you should wiggle this thing around until you get a consistent result. Because if you aim off center, all you're really measuring is what the temperature is like a quarter inch into your ear.
Right.
And what you want to measure is what is the temperature literally at the eardrum, because that's the closest you're going to get to the brain.
Okay, I guess I have to try another one of these devices. I'm sure there is one that's gene approved. We need a whole list of genes medically approved devices.
Well, there are a number of them. And like I always used to just use an infrared thermometer for cooking to do temperature measurements on myself. But I found that the ear measurements was actually more accurate.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, be aware of what's going on. That would be the biggest thing.
Absolutely. Be aware of what's going on. Know what some of the over-the-counter drugs can do and how they interact with each other.
Yeah, that's also important.
When you are self-treating, it's important to not make yourself feel worse than if you weren't self-treating, self-medicating.
And it's good to have somebody checking on you like every 15 minutes to make sure you're not dead.
I don't agree with that, particularly because I have a variety of electronic gadgets that will start making noise if they discover that I'm dead.
But who are they going to alert?
Well, I mean, initially they're going to try and alert me to wake up and to not be as not alive as I am.
He's not dead, right?
Yeah. But eventually they'll start contacting a variety of other folks who will then have a arduous task of making sure that anything associated with me gets scrubbed from the internet.
Okay. So you actually have some of these devices that are connected to the outside world and will start letting people know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to have devices like that because how would somebody know otherwise to start scrubbing your identity?
Right. Well, I mean, you won't even have existed. So people listening to this show will be like, wait, what? Who is this? Who's he talking to? This is a very weird podcast. Just one guy talking in a lot of silence.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's that weird. That's probably like 95% of all podcasts out there.
You're right. You're absolutely right about that. They think it sounds different, or they're just talking to the voices in their head. They just don't realize you can't hear it. Speaking of Neil Young.
Yes, I think he's the only one that's been hearing his own voice for quite a few years.
I think so. Which is why he wants to try to be relevant again.
Is that what he's trying to do? I thought he was trying to be like, show people he's still technically alive.
See, that may be his system for letting people know he's still alive. I just don't understand anybody that was around in the 60s, anti the man, all about freedom. I mean, his big anthem, Rockin' in the Free World. How do you turn into the guy that's like, you need to shut them down or you can't play my music? How does that happen?
Right? Exactly.
I don't get it.
I think he died a long time ago.
It could be. It could be.
And all we're seeing are the ripples.
And it's interesting to see the people that have jumped on. I mean, Nils Lofgren probably just was like, oh, shit, Springsteen and Neil Young, I need a job. Yeah. So I get his reaction to that. But Joni Mitchell, it's like, again, who knew she was still alive?
It's basically the irrelevance. The irrelevance have all decided to get on the bandwagon and say, well, gosh darn it. That's how they speak.
Golly.
Gosh darn it. I don't want some young whippersnapper Nazi using my music to promote their young whippersnapper Nazism. Of course, by young, like 55 years old, but okay.
But it's the concept of talking to people who say crazy things needs to be silenced. It's like, but if they're saying really crazy stuff, why do you need that? Because, people might believe them. It's like, well, then make the people believe you if you're right. What's your case? Where's the debate?
Yeah, there's nothing there. There is nothing literally there. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Except freedom or the lack thereof, which is, I think it's funny. I don't buy into any of the cancel culture stuff. Now I will chuckle when it boomerangs and bites one of the cancel culturers in the ass. Mm-hmm. But I think at some point it needs to stop. Not that everybody's going to be canceled, which is probably coming. But Neil Young talked in an interview in the 80s with Melody Maker, I think it was, and said some very anti-gay stuff. And it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. There's no limitations on how far back we can and can't go to cancel people.
Absolutely.
This is perfectly available. And then Joni Mitchell was in blackface on an album cover in the 70s.
Oh, no, not her and Justin Trudeau together.
Can you believe that would be an interesting album? He might be a better singer. I don't know.
He might be.
But this concept.
He learned from a great.
It's just the concept. It really just bugs me that these people.
Old people just need to stay in their fucking lanes and shut the fuck up and die.
But it's not just the old people wanting it. There's plenty of 20-year-old millennial nut jobs who are like, Joe Rogan's killing people.
Yeah, I'm including them.
Just stay in. Everybody, just go and
just stay in your fucking lane, shut the fuck up, and die.
Have the debate. I mean, that's it. If you can't have the debate, you've lost. If somebody comes out and says something crazy medically, say, well, no, that's not true, and here's why. If you can't convince somebody that you're right, then you lose. That's just the way it's always been. It's the way it always will be. People are going to be gullible which is why there are so many scams that go around and people continue to fall for stuff. Why do people
people will fall for Nigerian scams over and over.
Yes, I was just going to say, why does spam still exist? Why do all those phishing emails still exist? Because somebody...
It's a good thing John Dvorak doesn't get any spam.
Well, he doesn't get it. I don't think he just answers email, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah, well, he does have to print all the spam out first, which I think works against the spammers.
Yes, it has to be converted to paper format, which means you can't accidentally click on anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't go down into any of those rabbit holes on the interwebs.
http://google.nigeria.wellsfargo.secret.com. Okay. That makes sense.
What was your bank account and social security number again, sir?
Yeah, that's precisely it.
And your PIN number, thanks. That's all we'll need. And we will get you right back.
The PIN number, make sure the right account gets credited for the credits.
Yes, we want to make sure that all of the money you're owed gets into your account.
Yeah, because that would not be good if we couldn't put all the money you're owed into your account.
Speaking of losing money, Facebook down 26% the stock in one day.
Well, thank God for little favors, huh?
$230 billion.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
Good. We need more of that happening.
Well, yeah, for the companies that are evil.
Speaking of all companies, don't
you work for a company?
Losses, except for the one I work for.
Okay.
Speaking of losses, 25% loss from PayPal in one day.
For the stock went down too?
Yeah, stock went down 25% in one day.
Damn. So that and Facebook about the same. That's a big drop for PayPal. Was there under
billions? Yeah.
For Facebook, I kind of get it because they were showing huge losses. They were showing like 500,000 less logins a day, which I don't know how many idiots are logging into Facebook on a daily basis. My favorite thing on the whole bit was Zuckerberg's comment that was quote, people have a lot of choices for how they want to spend their time, and apps like TikTok are growing very quickly. So it's all TikTok.
It's all TikTok. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's as far as they're concerned.
But PayPal, that's weird. Is why
missed the stock earnings call.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are mad that the government's actually going to track your money on PayPal and Venmo and all of that.
Well, that would make people stop using PayPal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know what the option is because they all do that unless you're going to the straight crypto route. And most people don't understand that. And that will eventually be regulated like that.
It will be. It's getting there closer and closer to regulation for sure. But I do have something that I listened to /read while I was enjoying COVID. And I would highly recommend this. I've mentioned it on No Agenda Social already. But it's a book called Demon, up to you how you pronounce that. And it's a wonderful book written about 15 years ago that is fiction, but it sort of talked about and predicted this corporate oligopoly situation that we're currently going through, to where the distinction between the government and the large corporations is becoming smaller and smaller. And in a lot of ways, the corporations are controlling government. And at the same time, they are acting as government because they're selling their services directly to the government.
Well, yeah, because they have so much control.
Yeah.
How many people do you think realize that a vast majority of the news is owned by like 6 corporations?
I think it's less than that. But
mainly Disney and Comcast, and it's kind of scary when it comes down to it.
Chinese Communist Party.
Well, there's TikTok too. They control your TikTok.
Well, they also control your Facebook now.
Well, yeah, what you can see and what you can't see.
Daniel Suarez is the writer, and there's 2 books. The first one's called Demon or Damon, and then the second one is called Freedom. And the second book takes place closer to the modern age, but they are absolutely fascinating predictions of a lot of things we're living through. A lot of no agenda topics in general. Everything from, like Monsanto-like companies owning farmland because they've sued the farmers out of existence, and by effectively owning the crops, and the sort of response from a technological standpoint that happens when the government starts to push people beyond certain parameters, let's say.
Which we're seeing now.
We're very much seeing. So the book is fiction. There are elements that they actually kind of deal with the metaverse in some of the stuff that Facebook would like to have everybody get involved in. But they're doing it from a very more of a traditional hacker type standpoint. So I recommend to anybody that hasn't read the book or listened to the audiobook to do that, because you will thoroughly enjoy it and or get even more pissed about what's happening in the real world, because this is something that was written as fiction 15 years ago or so.
Sounds like an oracle telling us what to expect.
Yeah. And it's quite philosophical. It's quite philosophical, even though it's not presented as a philosophical book. It's really just sort of taking what are very predictable, normal circumstances, and then just moving the needle a little further down the road, a little further along the timeline to see what ends up happening. So highly recommend it. You haven't read it, I assume?
No. I'm guessing, though, it's a lot about technology control and surveillance and a
little bit. It's not nearly as much as you would think. It does start off with the main character. The initial main character, I should say, is a video game developer, but it very quickly moves on from his storyline to other storylines. It's just amazing at how predictive that book was when it was written in 2005.
Well, some people are good at that, seeing what's coming, being able to guess based upon what has happened. And as we've learned through COVID, a lot of people aren't good at that. I mean, a lot of people just have no clue how to take data that is out there. For instance, with this Omicron thing, we saw what happened in South Africa, which is the first place it was really noticed. Whether it originated there, still not sure. But we saw that it kind of burns through, affects people in a less severe way, and then goes away. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yep.
But there were people that are like, well, we don't know what it's going to do here. We might all die.
We might have to deal with Flurona.
Yes, right. Oh, my God. It's very, very, if you get these things at the same time, things are going to go.
Scary. It's so scary.
Well, this is why everything's pushed to stay in your homes, be docile.
Yeah.
Don't listen to people on the internet. They're crazy.
Well, that part of it's correct.
We can't argue that. Yeah.
No.
But this is why.
I know we've kind of hogged most of the show around the topic of Corona because I experienced it recently.
We have first person, baby. It's good to find out what it's like.
Yeah. It's really not a big deal is what it comes down to. I will say that if I get it again,
you'll be pissed.
I won't be pissed, but I'll just know exactly what to do, and I'll probably be able to shave off 4 or 5 days off of it.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can keep Amazon in business with all the stuff you're ordering.
That's true.
They were the one company doing really well. 9% increase in the fourth quarter. And they're jacking up Amazon Prime now 17% to $139 a year. And
holy shit.
Yeah. We've been on Amazon Prime, I think, since it was $69 a year.
I've been on Amazon Prime since it was free.
Ooh, well, you're old.
Yes, I am. And if an old guy like me can survive Corona,
yeah,
anybody can fucking survive Corona.
Nobody really knows your real age, though. I mean, there have been guesses, and people are like, well, how old is G? And I'm like, I don't know. I think he's like 86, 85.
Please. I appreciate you thinking me being that young, but
yes, yeah. He's
let's just
Monty
put
Burns.
it that when it comes down to having comorbidity factors, I've got all of them, and then a couple extras.
You've been collecting them like Pokemon cards.
Pretty much.
Collect all the comorbidities.
When they start talking about somebody who's out of shape and older than the 86 and yada 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 yada, I'm looking at my watch, going, What else you got for me, baby? What
Bring
else
it
you
on.
got? That's right. Who loves you, baby?
That's a K. Telly Savalas reference. Wow.
He was a fun character. Yeah, he's a good youngster.
Kojak, man, I've got that series to watch. It's on the list.
Yep.
Some good 70s
back
porno
when
music.
Back when music had wah-wah in it.
Hey, but the wah-wah pedal was an innovation that brought music into a whole nother level. But I'll pay the Amazon Prime thing because we buy so much, mainly for my parents.
Yeah.
The stuff they need, from vitamins, of course, now, but all the stuff you're taking, well, they're taking. My dad
I would highly recommend it.
Well, it helps, obviously, because you're still here. You're not 6 feet under.
I am still here. That's correct.
And, stuff like this hint water. My dad hates drinking water for some reason, but
same with my dad.
It's weird. Why is that?
It's the weirdest thing. I've never understood this concept of like, you don't want to overdrink water. I mean, what? Yes, you do.
Yes. Yes. You will have bad things happen to you if you don't stay hydrated enough.
Yeah. Like gout.
Yes. And, UTIs and just overall issues.
If you're a female, but definitely a gout if you're a male.
No, my dad's had multiple UTIs, which is.
Oh, that's not good.
No, that's what almost killed him.
Yeah.
And it's been better, but he still doesn't like to drink water. He likes this hint stuff, which is the most apropos name for any drink on the market, because the hint water basically has the very slightest hint of a flavor to it.
Okay.
They charge like $1.39 a bottle. Amazon has them usually pretty cheap, and you can do the subscribe thing. So they're getting like a couple cases every 2 weeks, and it's like, this is much easier than them going to the grocery store.
I drank Essentia water for a long time, for probably 3-4 years. And it is one of the tastiest waters with a high pH, if you ever want to try that. It's Essentia.
Essentia?
Yeah, ESSENCIA or something. I don't know. But
it helps.
It is quite tasty. It is not the best water for you, but it's pretty good.
Well, it's hard to find the best is just strictly water that was filtered and nothing else added.
Well, no, the best is distilled water. If you want to drink real water, which is what I drink these days, you really want to just drink distilled water.
So everything's removed from it.
There's nothing except water in my water.
Woo. I use that to clean my records, but damn it, I'm not going to use it to drink.
It's probably out of your price range to drink, but it's probably pretty good for cleaning records.
Although the reality is it's only like $1 something a gallon, which when it comes down to it, isn't really, when you consider what this hint water is selling for.
That's why I'm being facetious here. Yeah. I don't know if you're picking up on what I'm dropping.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think sometimes you're still like slightly delusional from the COVID. Never had the high fever though, did you? You were just tired. No high fever.
No, I really did. Well, 102. That's not really that high though.
No, I've had worse.
I had 102 for about 5 days. And then somebody told me that, hey, you should try like dropping that down or something.
You might want to lower the temperature, right? Yeah,
because it's never really bothered me, because I was really used to just, like, I grew up sitting in saunas at 170 degrees, 170.
And you're right. You were told that was healthy.
And it was healthy.
Sweat it out.
I think it still is. And then as long as you got some snow to jump into right after that, it's perfect.
We do. I've got like a foot outside right now.
And I've got nearly a quarter inch. So we're about the same.
I think your snow angels are going to be a little less epic.
I wonder. I should totally do a snow angel. Like right on the front yard. Yeah, that would be good.
In that quarter inch of snow.
In the quarter inch of snow, man. It is, it's technically not even snow. It's actually frozen rain. It's icicles.
Well, that's less exciting.
A quarter inch of icicles.
You can't make a snowman out of that.
No, you can't. There's one more day to go, though. So today was sub-freezing temperature. I think it got down to 29. And then tomorrow, it's supposed to get all the way down to like 18.
Damn, that's about what it is here.
Yeah. And 18 with a quarter inch of snow. I mean, that's pretty dangerous territory right there. We're talking about.
We're waiting to see if the dude named Ben, if his predictions were right, if you were going to get this whole other power problem this year.
Well, I do have a generator sitting here ready to get turned on if it does go that way, but I'm not sure if it will.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you think about this Biden sending troops to the Ukraine?
Well, I think that
Ukraine.
I know people yell at me. It really doesn't matter. All Ukraine means is borderland in Russian.
So it's theirs anyway.
It's kind of, well, if you want to watch, there's some YouTube videos that talk about the history of Ukraine. And the history of Ukraine, depending on which side you want to present it on, is either the origins and the foundation of all of Russia and all of Slavic countries, or alternatively, a chunk of land owned by Poland most of the time, or a steep on the south side of Russia by the border that was mostly under the control of the Tatars or the Mongolian hordes. So depending on what time period you look at and who you ask, you'll have a slightly different perspective on Ukraine.
Makes sense.
But I think what is completely indisputable is that there's absolutely zero difference between people that have lived for the last 1,000 to even 2,000 years in Ukraine and people that have lived the last 1,000 to 2,000 years in Russia. It's the same people. It's the same tribes. It's the same pretty much everything, with minor little tiny exceptions, like during World War II, Ukraine was on the side of the Nazis. During a chunk of period of the Mongol hordes conquering, Ukraine was actually overrun by the hordes and they were, slaves to them. But that has very little to do with ethnicity or history and more to do with the physical placement of where the country of Ukraine is, which is right. It's on the border. It's on the border of what? It's on the border of a river that the Vikings came down on to get all these Slavic slaves, which is, by the way, where the word Slav comes from. It comes from the word slave. So people that are super proud of being Slavs basically are proud of the fact that their ancestors were slaves.
But they have risen above.
They are something. And then aside from that river, it's also on the border with the Black Sea. And so the Black Sea, obviously, especially back in the many years ago time, was a fairly permanent interruption of any kind of movement that happened. So if you were, let's say, a Mongol horde coming down to sack Europe, you'd still have to walk around the Black Sea. You couldn't go on top of the Black Sea. And if you walk around the Black Sea and you walk on the shores of the Black Sea, you're walking through Ukraine. So it's what is interesting to me is I actually saw an article that was from a Ukrainian paper talking about how somebody, I don't think it's the president of Ukraine, but somebody in the administration finally is starting to realize that, hold on, we don't really want to be the next Syria.
Right.
Or the next Iran, or the next Iraq, or the next Afghanistan. The next place where the U.S. and Russia just fuck around back and forth with drones and other things, and we end up with dead people.
Right. A lot of destruction.
Because that's kind of where they've been going, and they've been buying the whole U.S. propaganda hook, line, and sinker. Not incidentally, not that the Russian propaganda is a whole lot better. Like, they're screwed, right? They're screwed for one very simple reason. Same reason they've been screwed for 2,000 years. Their location.
Right.
That's the main problem with Ukraine. It's also why they're the breadbasket of the old Soviet Union, is because they're like the Kansas and Iowa of the old Soviet Union. They have the land and the water supplies and the environment to be able to grow tons and tons of crops. But there's some other problems with Ukraine, and then I don't want to disparage them too much, but historically, there have been issues with corruption in politics. Oh no, I know.
Surprise.
I just said it. It's a shocker. It's a shocker for sure that nobody expected. But for as much as the Soviet Union and Russia has had its own issues with corruption, nothing like what Ukraine has had.
Well, look at the Hunter Biden stuff. That's all Ukraine.
Yeah. So what I predicted back, I don't know, a decade ago when the original Ukrainian revolution happened, and I'm an expert at this because I've dated several Ukrainian women over the years.
Well, that would do it. That makes you an expert.
Make me an automatic expert. What I said is the most likely scenario is they're going to fuck around with the United States for as long as they can get something out of them. And then maybe a decade later, maybe 15 years later, maybe 20 years later, they're going to have this miraculous, like, coming to Jesus session with Russia. And like, hey, we're all Slavic people. We all kind of speak a similar language, and fuck the rest of these people in Europe. We should all work together. I'm still saying that's going to happen. It may not be this year or next year, but ultimately there are more years where Ukraine and Russia were just kind of pissed off at each other than the entire history of the United States.
Yeah, they go back.
They go back over 2,000 years. Literally over 2,000 years of history, of joint common history on the same border, much of which was under the rule of the Vikings or the rule of the Mongol hordes or whatever. But that's a lot of history and a lot of common ancestry and a lot of family trees that go on both sides of those two countries. And it's not this quick and easy little portrayal that the United States, certainly the CIA, likes to portray of like, hey, they've been abused and we're just freeing them. Anybody believes that? You ought to read the Economic Hitman. There are 2 books in that series, and they're both nonfiction.
Well, it's all propaganda. That's it.
It's propaganda, but what you have to remember is that propaganda isn't necessarily generated toward the people that think it's generated for them.
Right. Well, I was really laughing my way through an article on CNN a week or so ago, which was talking about how Russian television is covering all of this. And they're like, oh, they're saying that there's planes flying overhead and this, but it's all the U.S. and Ukraine that are the aggressors. And we can't believe that. And it's like, CNN, that's all you do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Exactly. It's like, do you not know? I mean, you have to know. But although it's CNN, it's hard to say right now. They may just go down in a huge.
Yeah. You saw, Zuckerberg.
Not Zuckerberg. What?
What the main dude at CNN just got fired.
Yeah, well, he left due to the fact that he was having a relationship, an improper relationship.
Yeah, and if you buy that, there's a bridge I'd like to sell you too.
Oh yeah, there's no way. That's what I talked about on Random Thoughts this week, which is way too convenient. This is not the reason he is exiting the company, especially because the woman is not exiting the company.
No, she's totally not.
It's like these were 2 executives who had a relationship that didn't talk to the human resources department.
Ooh.
And right. That's what I said. I'm like, who cares? This had nothing to do with the business of CNN as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Losing 80% of your audience might have a slightly more negative impact on the company.
You think? You might have a little bit bigger of a way to deal with things.
Just might.
Jeff Zucker, the guy's name.
Yeah, that's right. He's been there forever.
Yeah, and he was the #1 Trump hater, so they've done a lot of crazy stuff over the last 5 years, which CNN has become a joke, which is why the audience is cratered, but the audience is also cratered for Fox News and MSNBC.
Fox is a joke just as much.
I also talked about that on Random Thoughts because I looked up. This is my new barometer for being able to tell how trustworthy and worth your time a news organization is online.
Whether O'Reilly still works there, is that the barometer?
No. O'Reilly puts out some good stuff that actually has turned out to be true. Look and do a Google search for the word bombshell. And the more that shows up on a website, the more unreliable the website is. And it was something like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like CNN was like 11,000. Fox was like 24,000, which I thought was going to be the high.
Mm-hmm.
The Huffington Post had like 600,000.
Oh my God.
Of the
That's
word
insane.
bombshell.
Bombshell.
Yeah.
Bombshell.
It's like, that doesn't really mean anything. It's all clickbait. It's all bull. But.
And with that,
we do have a few people to thank.
Let's do that
for today's show. Coming in at the top of this list for this Value for Value podcast is our buddy Sir Donald of the Fire Bottles. You may have heard the name if you're a No Agenda listener. And we do have a note, which is printed on the United Federation of Planets head and letterhead. Yes.
Very nice.
He says, Darren, I'm enjoying Random Thoughts, Planet Rage, and Unrelenting, except for Gene's part. No, wait, he didn't say that, but it was implied. 1/3 to each show, and the check was for 123.45. So that puts $41.15.
Not bad
for this Unrelenting show.
Yeah. Now, if you just stop listening to the other two shows, we might actually have something here.
No, those shows are great, and I appreciate
overrated. I hear.
Then coming in at $25, our buddy Sir Sean of the Allegheny Valley, who also donates to Random Thoughts, Planet Rage, and the No Agenda Rock and Roll pre-show.
Yeah, what is with these people not being able to just pick something?
I'm seeing a thread in this. And
I'm
Sir
seeing
Sean,
indecision.
We love Sir Sean. He said he's actually spending more now than he used to pay on his cable bill, but he's getting more out of the podcast that he supports.
Well, I believe that.
There's no question about that, because cable television sucks. Cable news sucks.
Yeah.
You can get pretty much anything you want streaming. If you really like sports, which was the last bastion keeping so many people on cable that, I got to watch my live baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is.
You don't need cable anymore for that.
No, it's all on the internet. It can be streamed live, and it's a beautiful thing. Also coming in at $25, Loretta Vandenberg, with a note saying, hi, I'm back to Grumpy Old Ben's pre-Gene. Okay, so maybe this is the anti-Gene coming in.
Sounds like it.
She says she got interrupted. Episode 93 struck a chord because Microsoft's threat intelligence capability was built on the DoD's back, and they made the DoD pay heartily for the service now. F you, Microsoft. Well, I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of disagreement on that one. Bill Gates, Microsoft, Bill Gates is the guy that predicted the whole COVID outbreak 3 years ago.
Well, Fauci predicted it, too. That was
Fauci's riding Gates' coattails, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, he's got to make his money somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Gates, if you're looking for money, that guy's got some.
Yeah, although his wife just announced that she is pulling out of the donating majority of my money.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To the kids? This was, they were not going to give the money to the kids. She's backing off, and that was this. Oh, this what?
Fairly recent.
Oh, was this what this divorce was all about then?
I don't know.
Take care of the kids.
He still is doing that whole thing.
Well, yeah, but getting half of Bill Gates' money still puts most of us on pretty
their
good
current
footing.
Their current endowment is $56 billion.
So she has half of that, so about 26.
No. That's the endowment. That's neither one of them owns that. That's the endowment's money at this point.
Okay, so that they've already donated.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. So I'd say the endowment's going to be just fine.
Oh, yeah.
Even if neither one donates, but the plan is now for them to be donating individually. But Melinda Spaceship France Gates, or whatever her new name is, it's something like that.
Hey, Melinda, if you're listening, consider sending in a donation to the show.
We'll take one. But she's basically said she'd prefer to make her donations directly.
That makes sense.
As part of some organization that Bill runs.
That makes sense. You feel like you're more involved, especially when you're doing it at a level that she is doing it.
You gotta wonder about these people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, who couldn't even give away all their money without having to build an organization to do it.
Right, because they've got a lot of money.
Yeah, I got a lot of money.
It's hard to give that much money away. I mean, okay, wait. Let me rephrase that, because you can give it away at once to any idiot you want to give it to.
We'll take it, just in case anyone's wondering.
Yes. I mean, if Jeff Bezos is like, you know what? These billions are really weighing down.
You know, the guy invented Amazon Prime. You got to give him that.
Yeah.
So, good guy.
And the service does do what they say it's going to do. So that's a plus.
Yeah. Of course, they charge the vendors 30% on top of all their fees that we pay in order to provide the service. But that's all right.
Well, I saw something that like they're shutting down all of the third party selling on Amazon. There was something big going on with that too.
Yeah, they're definitely not doing that.
There was something with third-party sellers. We'll get it for the next episode. But Judah Kookie comes in with a check for $10. He splits it between all my shows as well. There's a thread. People like me,
for fuck's sake,
they're not too sure about you though, Gene.
They just can't make up their minds because somebody clearly kept saying, "Oh, he might be dead." You never know. He might be dead, and of course that drives the donations.
I mean, to be fair, even Loretta Vandenberg, she donates to Planet Rage as well. So there's that. And then Johnny Bravo comes in with $6.66, which the note was, it was a $20 donation to split between Unrelenting with KGB. So that's his nickname for you. Rage with Larry and Random Thoughts. Keep up the excellent work, Johnny Bravo from Canada. I mean, God bless the Canadians.
Yeah. Now, is that real money or Canadian money?
No, this was American money.
Okay. So
which is good.
Money. Yeah. That's good. Make sure you bite that stuff because the Canadian money's kind of soft.
And there were another 6, I think, of the 33-cent check. So maybe they stopped, or maybe the post office is just slow from Jeremy Gertis with the streaming 33-cent checks.
They're onto him with the streaming checks.
And I saw the only live one from the last month over on Locals was Bully Steed with a $6. And I saw a check just came in. I haven't gotten the check yet, but they send you a picture of the check. So a check just came in from her as well. So we appreciate that. And we'll give you the, nice. Also on the next show. But that's interesting because.
So before we sign off, for people that missed the pre-show portion of the show, we were having a conversation, a discussion, if you will, about the benefits of Locals versus not. Because on the one hand, we really haven't taken much advantage of Locals. On the other hand, I don't know that we ever will.
Right.
So should we just stop telling people to sign up to Locals and give us money that way and just focus on PayPal, which seems to be consistent?
Yes, to go the just plain old value for value route without the other third party in the middle. Now, I know there is some stuff we would like to do with doing additional content and all that, and it's nice to have an easy way to just flip that on and be like, okay, we want to put out a video that's only for our donors. That would be great for the people that are supporting the show. But as of right now, we're not doing that, which makes it a lot less likely, I think, for people to throw money in. Because just the way I am when it comes to Locals or Patreon or anything like that, if you're just donating without getting anything back, I'm fine doing the PayPal thing. That seems to make more sense. The only time I get really excited, no, not even excited, but that's where I'll go to Patreon is something where there is content coming out every month that you only get with a subscription.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I use a service like that. And people do all sorts of different stuff, though. So I'm not saying I'm the one with the right viewpoint on it.
I tend to agree. And I think that while we had this neat idea of using a brand new, to us at least, service with Locals, and a service that I actually sent money to people through, I think we took too damn long to try and get into video. And then once we got into video, we realized that you don't really need Locals. And so it sort of became it became a little bit of an albatross. And so let's just officially make the announcement and say, we will be discontinuing Locals in March as a potential stream of revenue. So if you're still using Locals, start thinking about using PayPal.
Some people are cheering.
If you're never used Locals, you probably are cheering, going, what? Why have they been talking about this Locals bullshit that nobody really needs anyway?
Because it seemed like a really good idea until It wasn't. I mean, it's not a bad company. When
I think it is a great idea, just not necessarily meant for us.
Or at least not at this point. If we get to that point where it's like, hey, we're recording a video every day, then maybe you need a service like that.
And I don't think we're going to get to that point. I think if we get to that point, they'll be on YouTube or Rumble.
Yes.
Well, the parent company of Locals.
We do love the Rumble. But if you want to help support the show, you can do so by going to unrelenting.show/donate. All of the information is there, from using PayPal, QR codes for the Bitcoin or any of the other crypto, snail mail addresses. It's all beautiful. And if you're listening on a Podcasting 2.0 app, and I don't think anybody is, because I've been saying this for a long time, and saying boost, 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 or stream some sats, Unrelenting not doing good on these streaming sats. And over on Planet Rage the other day, Cold Ass is like, did you get my Boostagram? And I'm like, no. It disappeared somewhere in between. So I see why it's still a work in progress. But if you're using that, God bless you. I think that's where podcasting is going, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think there is certainly, like, if you want to be the part of that whole ecosystem, there's plenty of apps, podcasting apps to download. There's plenty of ways for you to get involved and to transfer money in. But the number of people that are actually bothering to do it, I think right now is pretty similar to what we're seeing on our Locals.
Yes. They don't want the hassle of going through that
the
one
bleeding
extra
edge folks that just enjoy being on the bleeding edge. So if you want to just send us, blanket, send us water, send us PayPal.
Some hint water, pineapple, please.
Pineapple's pretty good. Yeah, I'll take pineapple.
It's delicious.
Yeah. God damn, now you're getting me hungry, and I can't drive to the store because we have a storm. Otherwise, I would drive out and buy pineapple, but I'm pretty sure all the stores are currently locked down.
I know. I tried to order a quart pineapple the other day for when we did our grocery shopping, and they were out of it. I mean, come on.
Quart pineapple? Is that like when it's pre-taken out?
Yes, because otherwise you'd have to cut it yourself. But it's basically like they have taken the pineapple and taken the stuff you can eat out of it and put it in a container for you.
I like pineapple. I always try and get pineapple when I'm somewhere warm, like Florida.
Well, yeah, but then you can make a cup out of it and put some rum inside of it. And, you've got living large right there.
Oh, coconuts work pretty good for that, too.
That's true. It's amazing. You can turn fruits into glasses.
And with that, that's a hint to play the outro, because I
thought you were going to say with that, good, we're done. We'll see you next time. But you just said, and with that,
go away, people. Go away. We're done.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.